So, Ed, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Uh, First off, thank you for this invitation. And my name is Ed Calderon. I am known as a subject matter expert when it comes to regional cartel conflicts in Mexico, border issues, certain unconventional and kind of like obscure methodologies related to people improvising and hiding and utilizing improvised weapons and just weapons of opportunity, which I've been hired by a few federal agencies and a few military agencies to basically show some of this material, and also just I go across the country and show this material freely to anybody that wants to learn it. And on the other side of it, I also train people in the very misunderstood subject matter of is escapology, basically how to be the means of your own rescue when it comes to being retained under false pretenses or being kidnapped and things like that of that nature. A big part of what we do, because it's more than just me, this company that I run called Snake Reaper Industries. A big part of what we do is basically we try and there's a lot of concepts out there that are considered forbidden knowledge or secret knowledge. And I learned most of the best tricks that I've managed to impress SF guys, SEER instructors. Most of those tricks came from kids that were playing around with some of the shit that I got to face. So we're trying to make the dark arts a bit more to come into a bit more into the light. People learn some of these things because of need in certain pretty horrible environments, and uh, things change and shift. If you go to places like Portland, it's a nice place one day, and no cops in
Sure.
it. So like that's kind of like one of the big aspects of what I'm known for and what I do.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had the opportunity. I had COVID while doing urban movement online with you. And so that was a great opportunity. I appreciate you putting some of this stuff online so that people who really can't travel or people who have COVID like I did at the time can participate in that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, a big part of the stuff we're doing now online is bringing some of that, again, the online training stuff. So we have a Patreon and a pretty interesting Discord that if people are interested in some of the stuff that we've done in urban movement, both in some of the live classes and also on some of the online training, it's a pretty good add-on to people's skill sets. We go over secure phone communications, tracking people online, verifying news stories by figuring out where things were filmed and when, that type of
Mhm.
stuff. It's a beautiful thing. Again, if people are into that, and highly recommend they join us.
Yeah, yeah. I support you on Patreon. There's a lot of good stuff there, and also I just joined the Discord, and I noticed that one of the subjects in the Discord was on tacos, and people are posting pictures of like tacos that they're eating, and I hope this weekend I can contribute to that part of the Discord.
Tacos are a essential part of my life. I took some of the producers of the show, The Taco Chronicles on Netflix.
Hmm.
I took them to they came to Tijuana and they went to the spots that were recommended. And I'm like, I'm from Tijuana. That you went to the safe spots. Those are fortunate. And
Right.
I tell them like, you have to have some survival skills to be able to enjoy the good ones. And it's
Very
true.
good.
And
I
it's true.
believe you. I believe you, man.
At some point, I'm going to organize a taco safari for some of the guys that are on the Patreon or the Discord, and it's going to be quickly apparent why.
Uh-huh.
um,
Gotcha.
like I took them to a taco spot that had no signs on it. It was just somebody's backyard, and
Uh-huh.
they cried with those tacos.
That's great. That is awesome, man. So one of the reasons you have all these great skill sets, you do all this stuff, and I wanted to talk to you today because you're also a dad, and you're like me. You are trying to make sure that the next generation has a skill set that they need to protect themselves and that sort of stuff. What are some of the things that parents today in 2024 need to be teaching their kids to protect themselves?
Number one is engagement. Um, we live in a society right now, and some of our kids are coming up traumatized from COVID.
Hmm.
the whole aspect of distance, mask, isolation, like to us who are grown up and didn't go through that, we have no clue how much damage that did to these kids. Anxiety issues, just this weird spatial bubble that they are now living with as far as tattoos in their minds. And also seeing everybody as a potential threat for pathogens is something I've
Mm,
seen,
yeah,
with some kids that
yeah.
kind of live through that. My mother was very active in making me participate in what was going on around me. So, hey, we're going to the store. You're going to pay for what we get, right? Like, I was like, but I don't, so like she would push me forward. Uh, there's a homeless person who's asking for money. Like, I'm the one that hands the money over. And I respond kindly to whatever this homeless person says. There's somebody needing socks, we would hand out. My mom would always have a bag of socks and underwear that we would hand out to homeless people. I think one of the big aspects that I see missing in a lot of kids' lives is that, we want to keep them very secure. We want to keep them isolated. We don't want anybody to touch them, anybody to contact them. And they grow up with this false sense of safety and also this almost self-imposed blindness as far as who's around, and they just don't talk to people. You don't get kids talking to other people.
Hmm.
My kid, she's 10, and sometimes she's with me for some of the podcast recordings, and some of the guests that have shown up. We had Josh Burnett
Uh, uh,
show up to one of these, and I was like, Josh, like I was nerding out on Josh Burnett, his legendary fucking MMA fighter, and my daughter talked to him for a long while about shoplifting.
that's
Shocking.
great.
Like, why does the kid know how to do that? She's never gonna go hungry. She knows it's wrong. But you know, there's spiciness to it. I think Jordan Peterson said this best. A good parent has to supervise stupidity closely, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think again, I think that's what's the big hole in a lot of our parenting aspects is, if we're people that are just not engaged with the world, we don't volunteer for anything, we don't go out, we don't talk to people, we don't do any of that. Our kids are going to emulate us, and an isolated, nervous person that puts himself in self isolation is the perfect victim,
Mhm.
and that's not what you want to raise your kids to be.
Yeah, I agree. There was a situation that happened with my son and a couple of his friends not too long ago, and I thought, well, why didn't they just like talk about this? Why didn't they talk it out or whatever? And it's just like the idea of talking to somebody that they're not close friends with. It's not something that they really want to do. That engagement thing that you're talking about, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I just had Eric O'Neill on the show, and he talks about tasking his kids with, hey, today you need to give somebody a compliment, and I'm like, oh, that's great. So like, I tasked my son with doing that, and then this hurricane came, and he was home for a couple of days, so he hasn't got to do it yet. So like, hopefully I can get him to have those engagements like you're talking about, being the one to go to the store and paying and all that sort of stuff. Because you're right, it's like a tattoo on their brains. They're not where we were when we were their age, right?
Yeah, it's a different world. People are on their phones. Danger, the face of evil, or the predator. Like when we were tribal people and we were like hanging out around a campfire, and one of our friends was sniped by a leopard. We had a vague notion of what that leopard looked like. We figured out it was a leopard because we saw the tracks, and we had this reaction to it. And now you see a live video, you could put it on repeat as far as what that leopard looks like. We see the predator clearly, and we see that he has or she has all of our faces. So it's not a monster, a clear monster. So I think that's a difference that the kids are growing up with now. I mean, I remember getting this. My uncles would scare me with El Robachicos, the man with the sack.
Okay.
and they will always point it to them like a pretty disheveled homeless guy walking around like that's the man in the sack, and you would worry about that guy, yeah. But nobody would talk about the priest in the church that I would go to, who was later on found out to be a major pedophile. And it turns out that was the monster. So um, the subtleties of that are, as far as the nature of that being a reality for some of the people that are now growing up with that, that the realization that monsters don't really represent what they are. It's something I've also talked to my kid about a lot. Like every now and then somebody does something really bad, and I just, before I even mention what it is, I'll just show her a picture of somebody. It's like, what do you think about this person? And she's like, well, she looks like a nice person, you know. I'm not trying to traumatize her or anything like that, but like then I just, tell her like, you know what, this person was actually a pretty bad person. She did this and this. And she's like, oh, like, and she's like, wow, she doesn't look like that. Yeah. And that's the lesson,
Mm-hmm.
that's the lesson. Look at people's actions, look at people's hands, and leave the smiles for later. Yeah, I always say this: their hands kill, faces smile. So just focus on the danger. Just look at people. People will tell you who they are if you learn to look with your intuition and your pattern recognition. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big believer in that. Like you and I grew up watching Masters of the Universe where the monsters had skull faces and these big claws and all this stuff. They looked like monsters. And you make such a good point that, nobody really looks like that. All the bad guys look like you and me. And so it is interesting to try to teach your kids, okay, just because somebody has nice clothes and they look nice does not mean they have nice intentions.
Yeah. I had this moment. I did some jungle warfare training way back. And in Mexico, we still have, wild leopards running around some parts of the country, and those things will go after like alligators, caiman.
Hmm.
So they're scary. Uh, it dawned on me quickly why the human eye can detect so many tones of green. It's one of the colors that we can differentiate the most out of all of them.
Mhm.
If you want to spot a leopard hidden in the bushes, you need that. And there was this realization around that, like, oh, this is the fact that we can look at so many spectrums of green in our, it's just because we're trying to figure out what's out there. How do you apply the same concept to our main predator, which is ourselves? Um, Pattern recognition, but a behavioral pattern recognition should be installed in the software of a young kid. Like, what are these actions? Why are they doing this? What behavior are they expressing? This is dangerous. We probably shouldn't,
Right.
we probably shouldn't be here. When I was in my law enforcement career, we had this horrible case that we were basically driving through a community, and we were waved down. We got out of the car. We went into this very humble. It's not even the walls. The walls of this house were made out of garage doors and tarp. And there was one of the most chilling things I've seen. A lot of horrible stuff that was pretty bad. This probably 2, 3 year old kid, uh, severely beaten. Uh, like a boxing match level beating. I've never seen a kid beat like that. Um, and the parents there, um, both of them fainting. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And we had some of the basically neighbors telling us that there was a bunch of screams in there. Like, look at what. Um, and I just had this moment of looking around the room, the room where they were in, a very shanty little house, and seeing the guy tuck his hands underneath his armpits, like,
Mhm.
and he was smiling like, I don't like, I'm very angry. Whoever did this, I can fucking kill him. Like, I wouldn't be crossing my arms and having my hands under my armpits after somebody beat my son, and I would be actively out there with a machete looking for
Right.
this fucker.
Right.
And I said, "Show me your hands." And this kid had milk teeth, but they split open one of his knuckles, and it was on.
Mhm.
Um, how can you teach that to somebody? Um, for me, it's been something I've been just learning just by being around a lot of this type of stuff. But how can you digest that and not traumatize your kid
Right.
and show them some of these things?
Right.
People being deceitful. What is that like? People trying to con you. What is that like? People trying to sell you on something. There's a bunch of ways. Every now and then you'll encounter somebody with a sign saying like, "Hey, I need money for an operation." Yeah. And you see them a week, a month. You see them in different places, and then you get into a Mercedes and drive away.
Mhm.
Instead of just looking at that and um, taking that as an opportunity to point at it and explain to your child, like, "Hey, they seem sad, right? Yeah, okay. They, if you had a kid who was really sick, would you have a Mercedes or would you sell the Mercedes?" "I'd sell my Mercedes." "They're not selling the Mercedes. What do you think is going on there?" "They probably don't have a kid." "Yeah." And it's like, yeah, it's a moment like, oh, people lie about that type of stuff. Yes, they do. It's subtle, but
Mhm.
each of these things are upgrades. And some people will say, "Yeah, you're teaching your kid not to to be paranoid." Yeah, it's not about paranoia. It's about focalizing their attention into things that they should be paying attention to. We can't. Our predators camouflage themselves through behavior, and we need to teach our kids to have a better aspect of distinguishing these behaviors and patterns. And we start small. One, having them being engageful when they are out there and talking to people, saying good morning, good afternoon, helping somebody across the street, giving them the thrill of being a lifesaver, somebody that just like I've seen my kid just hand over socks and underwear to fucking homeless people, and they're like, "Thank you," and she's like, "Yeah, no problem," and she's beaming with light after that interaction. And also just then us walking around and they don't give a fuck about me. They don't say hi to me. They say like, "Hey, la princesa, no, the princess." Yeah. She's, that aspect of it, I think is beautiful. And again, it gives them confidence. It boosts the right types of endorphins in them. And it also engages them in the world. And
Mhm.
when they drive by or walk by a homeless person, instead of looking forward and not making eye contact, she'll say good morning, good afternoon. She'll treat them like human beings, but she will look. Before you approach anybody, just look at their hands and look at their feet. Direction, intention. Um, that aspect of it, I think is pretty beautiful when you realize you're not doing any of the service or not scaring them when you're doing this. You're giving them the tools to distinguish between the camouflage that people use who are actually dangerous
Mhm.
through their behavior, through how they look, how they act, and what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I had the opportunity, and I call it an opportunity. It really wasn't an opportunity. I had the situation. I was at a Walgreens with my son, and there was a lady there who was being victimized in a gift card scam, and she was on her phone, and she was nervous. She was talking, saying strange things. She was trying to find this very particular type of Visa gift card, going around to all the different people who worked in the store, trying to find this very specific one. And it was just odd behavior because she's not looking or acting like anybody else in the store, right? And so she says something. She's like, "Oh, I need to go out to my car. I'm going to put the phone down and I'll be right back." Because she's going to leave her phone in the store. I don't know why, but that was she says, "Oh, you don't want me to take the phone out of my hand?" And
Yeah.
that was like this clue of, okay, this really is a gift card scam, and this is what is going on. So I explained to my son, this is what's happening. And so I talked to the store manager real quick. I was like, has anybody tried to intervene and help this lady? And they're like, we're not, they didn't really kind of know what to do. They knew something was up. So I stepped in and I was like, "Hey, ma'am, are you in trouble? Can I help you?" That sort of thing. And that was the wrong way to approach that. And I learned
Yeah.
that right then. And so she ended up buying the card and leaving. And I don't know what happened to her after that. So it was a learning experience for him to see somebody who was in duress and to see that, hey, my dad was at least willing to step up and try to do something. Even though I did not approach that in the right way, I should have come at it a little bit differently. Didn't quite know what to do. But yeah, I think about those moments where we see something that happens in real time and in life, and we try to explain how at an age appropriate level for our kids what they're seeing and what it really means.
Yeah, I saw this wildlife documentary where they were taking rescued orangutan babies from a shelter and trying to release them in the wild. And one of the things they had to do was basically teach them about snakes to stay away from them. So they would put this fake snakes, cover them with things. They would like they would just the experienced one would back up and like, why are we back? Oh, it's a snake. And like everybody would like back up, you know. Um, it, it's funny, but yes, these moments that come in our lives, this we don't live in the Barney universe, you know. No, not everybody wants to be your friend. Not everybody's going to be friendly. Not everybody has your best intentions at heart. And if your kid is growing up with that sense of the world, that's not wonderful. You know, I
Mhm.
understand innocence. Innocence is our distance to source. Like if that's why you have these instances of leopards, baby leopards, playing with baby gazelles in the middle of the savannah. And you're like, what the fuck is going on there? They're innocent. Innocence, the closer you are to God, that's probably that you're the more innocent you are. But the further you go from God or from your birth date, that's when a lot of the actual software that we need to kind of have installed gets actuated. My kid's 10. She stopped believing in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus probably around 3, 4. She was like, dude's gonna come in the house and leave presents. I don't want any. Can we put the tree outside?
I love it.
So we had to. It's like, yeah, it's fine. But she's informed. She's critical. Um, she is seeing things and pointing things out that the rest of the kids in her school don't. So it's like, hey, like she will, if something's wrong, she will approach teachers and say, hey, this happened, or hey, that's going on over there. Um, which is, if you're a girl dad, that's what you want. You know, you want her to say something, to not be quiet, to not be, this little, quiet thing, because that's who the lions will go after. Um, You want them to be loud, vociferous, demanding, critical. She's not agreeable. Yeah, of course she's not. She's not gonna fucking let herself, be. I don't know. For me, that's kind of been a big part of what I'm trying to do with her.
Yeah. And I get that. And some people just don't understand. They don't understand like, oh, why would you do that? Why would you teach your 10-year-old that? Why would you let her, do these sorts of things? And it's like, because this is reality. This is the real world. This is what she is going to have to face. This is what my son is going to have to face. And if we don't prepare them for that real world, we haven't really done a good job, have we?
No, they're unequipped. Like again, I have this. My kid, she's kind of like a celebrity at school because somebody scrapes a knee, she has a little blowout kit she pulls out. She's useful. She's helpful. She's active with everybody. Like her teachers are like, where did you get this kid? Like I just gave her the tools, confidence that these tools give her. Another aspect of what I've been doing with her as well is I've been showing her it's very hard as a parent to be the cool teacher. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah, it does.
I have people, government agencies fly me out across the country um, to show their federal agents or people that are about to go and do God knows who, God knows where. I just show them how to be capable and how to improvise this and that and all this stuff. And I sit down with my daughter, try to show her some of this shit, and she's like, "You're not cool." But I've had the privilege and to know a lot of people who are amazing instructors on their own right. I had Eddie Gallagher, Eddie Gallagher on the podcast, and
Uh-huh.
my daughter um, ordered tacos for him. Showed Eddie Gallagher how to order tacos, and then proceeded to take out a list of questions that she asked Eddie.
That's awesome.
Eddie, God bless God bless him. He's an amazing human being. I know. Uh, I can recognize people that have gone through darkness, and
Mhm.
he's one of them. But he's an amazing human being though. Beautiful, beautiful man. He was so patient with her, so direct and concise with his kind of questions. Like what do you think about this? And then she would pull out her little blowout kit, and he would like add this in there and add that, and like legit took her serious with her questions. Kids are serious.
Yeah.
It's a serious thing. Talking to a kid and teaching a kid something. That kid can grow up and be something at the right moment for somebody else. Sometimes we brush them off. We don't understand the importance of their questions. We are living. It's a weird thing to kind of trip out on. But if you have a kid, you're living in your kid's childhood memories right now.
Oh,
And are they good memories, or are you just fucking laying on with your underwear eating Fritos in a corner, playing video games with your kids begging for attention? Like, why are you in that memory? Um, Being present, letting them ask questions, and just, again, having beautiful, amazing people around you that you can every now and then it's like, hey, you're like, can you show I get sports are great. My kid doesn't like sports. She likes activities. She likes botany. She likes collecting bugs. She likes whittling. She likes gear. She has a little backpack that is kitted out. Like, uh, but uh, but it's important. It's
mhm.
fun. It's interesting, but it's important. There's an importance to it. And when we start thinking about how important it is to not only give kids the supervision, give them home, give them food, give them rest, give them all that, but also just giving them the opportunities to experience
Mhm.
and to ask, from different types of people. My kid's been around Josh Burnett, Eddie Gallagher. She's trained with one of the best female martial arts instructors out there. She has different concepts of what a woman is.
Mhm.
She sees a woman in this MMA fighter, or she sees a woman in this healing woman that shows her how to use plants to treat a wound for infections, which is something she's done at school and just blown minds. Um, Again, that whole aspect of just having them experience and just be there for the supervision around it. That's the whole app. That's what we need to do. We need to be present for it, but we can't interrupt it. They're gonna probably fall maybe, or scrape their butts, or something's gonna have bad is gonna happen, and we're there to catch them. But we're not there to keep them from falling. And that aspect of parenting, I think, has been pretty phenomenal to just kind of know and act upon.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of wisdom there, man. A lot of wisdom. I wanted to go back to something you said a little while ago. Like when somebody is, when your daughter's approaching somebody, you say, look at the hands, look at the feet. I know a little bit about what you mean there. Kind of explain to folks what are some of those red flags or tells of what hands and feet could be doing that you need to
Sure,
kind of be aware of.
sure. A linear path of movement towards you in any context, as far as the street goes, is should be a cause for all of your senses to be activated. What's behind me, what's beside me, where can I go to, where can I run, What do I have in my hands? What does he have in his hands? And why is this person approaching me? I have some pretty insanely famous friends, and people that have followed me on social media know who these people are. But being around them, one of them is a very famous singer, very famous. Being around them is surreal because you see these people who have immediate recognition with people around them. So you'll see somebody on the street that just looks at them and starts going that straight line, and everybody's acting. And he told me this, you don't know if this person wants to shake my hand. You don't know if this person wants to ask for my autograph or if the person has like bad intentions, and you have to make that decision immediately.
Hmm.
So I showed him this whole concept, like, um, feet will show you direction, and they will also show you where weight is placed. If you're gonna take a swing, and whenever you see a boxing match, whenever you see somebody hitting pads, whenever you see somebody loading up for a kick or loading up for a sprint, pay attention to what that looks like. If somebody's loading their back leg or their front leg as they're approaching you, probably
Hmm.
cause for alarm. So the feet will give you a lot of aspects of intention and awareness. One of the first things I always look at though is the hands, and usually hands are in at the height of the waist, so you can also look at the waist, which is usually where weapons are. So I do this quick equation in my mind: hands, hands and waist, feet and pace. You know,
Hmm.
hands and waist, feet and pace, and at the very end of it, it's the face. I look at the
Hmm.
face, and the face is usually something I look at just as a that's where I'm going to hit. That's where I'm going to hit this person. That's where I'm going to do damage if something happens, and that's what I don't want following me. Right. So that's how I kind of view that. Nobody can, like, if somebody approaches you and they want to kill you, it's going to be a pretty hard thing to kill you if they can't reach you, if their only weapon is their mouth to bite you. They can kick you into traffic, but usually weapons will hide on the waistline, behind the back, armed in their hands, or just already in their hands. And that's usually something you'll find with weapons. A lack of symmetry in somebody's stance, somebody walking with a hand behind their back, just
Hmm.
not seeing two hands, having one hand not swing when they walk. A good example of this is Vladimir Putin. If anybody sees Vladimir Putin in a lot of these videos, he's always walking with a straight hand. His right hand's always straight, which indicates somebody that carries a gun or has training. He probably carries a piece wherever he goes, I'm pretty sure.
I would imagine so.
So it's an interesting indicator of somebody who's probably armed and has intentions other than your well-being. Um, Funny enough, a lot of the if people can go and look at some of the videos of some of the Chinese immigrants pouring over the border, a lot of them don't swing that right hand, and that's pretty alarming.
Uh-huh.
But it's again hands. That's where weapons hide. Weapons hide in hands, and weapons hide in clothing waistlines usually. A big aspect of some of the weaponry training that I do is like people kind of get freaked out with it. Like, why are you showing us how to make a cardboard sheath for this kitchen knife and how to hide it on our waistline? Because it's hard to look for something that you've never seen. Number one,
Sure.
like they're like, oh, it just, and also if you don't have anything, you can have something. You just go to Black Angus and just wrap something. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but again, feet will indicate direction and weight distribution, intention.
Mm.
Hands will hide weaponry, and waist and a waist will hide weaponry, and a face will smile at you. I remember seeing old videos of some of the Sparrow Hitman people and old videos of some hitmen in the Eastern Europe, and some of them were training to shoot in assassination type styles. And one of the first things they teach them is to smile before they shoot because it disarms your victim. So you're like,
Uh-huh.
and it just blew my mind that these fucking predators had that kind of like mindset about it. So
Right.
hands and waist, feet and weight is what I show people kind of like basically to focus on. a lot of people have different concepts around it. For me, it's not just showing them the awareness, it's showing them what they can do if they know how to, showing them how to do what they're going to have to defend against. So how to hide it, how to hide a weapon, how to palm a knife, how to conceal your intentions, how to shift weight, how to keep somebody from detecting the fact that you have a knife in your hand. All of these things are built into awareness training for them. How can you detect something if you've never seen it or done it yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, that's wild. You talked about the whole smiling thing. Um, I don't know if you ever saw this or not, but Walt Disney had this show called Zorro, and Guy Williams played Zorro, and he was a swordsman. He fenced, he did all this sort of stuff. But one of his things was he would smile at his opponent the whole time. He had just this big grin on his face, and my dad pointed that out to me because he loved the show, and he was just like, it unnerves your opponent. Like, why is he smiling? It just gives him something to think about. So I think that's interesting. So in your career, you've come into contact with, a lot of unsavory people. Is there one or two things that you just see or notice about somebody and you're just like, I've seen this before. I need to be cautious around this person. What is like something kind of that's a red flag you've developed over your life?
I mean, trauma will give you pattern recognition. And I don't want to tell people to go get trauma because that's horrible. Um, I don't know, like one of the best judges of character for somebody, and it's something I make it a point to, if they're a parent, see if their kids like them. I mean, if your kid doesn't like you, who are you?
It's a good point.
Um,
It's a real good
and
point.
a kid could be your first witness. A kid is a pretty beautiful witness.
Mm,
Other things could be your animals and the way people behave around animals. Just have a dog around and see somebody just being, it'll indicate something about people, the treatment of animals and just treatment of other people. Somebody holding a door open versus somebody just fucking walking through and not giving a shit about what's happening behind them. Some people think it's cultural. Like there's a Japanese in Japan, there's like it's a big thing where people can't hold the door open because you're gonna stay all day because it's so crowded. I get it culturally there,
sure.
but here it's a sign of somebody that's detached. It's a small indication of detachment. It's a small indication of coldness. It's a small indication of a lot of things. It could be something related to somebody being on the spectrum, maybe, but realistically, it's something is, it's an alarm bell for me when I see somebody just being discourteous in a small way like that. Another thing I've also kind of noticed a lot, specifically with some of the youth aspect of this, is just if I can give anybody a wonderful tool, it would be drug recognition and also drug effect behavioral recognition, because
Yeah.
people are on under substances, be it stimulants or downers, display a very specific behavior both in their daily lives and around them, to their actual interactions with you. It's a good idea to know how some of these drugs act. Methamphetamine will make you take things apart and not put them together. So if you see somebody with a bunch of shit taken apart around their space, that probably guy's using meth. Um, Again, this whole aspect of chemicals and how it changes some of their behavior, is interesting. And for me, it's allowed me to get this kind of sixth sense about people, that people who later on like, how do you fucking call that? And I was like, I've been around this before. And I can, there's nothing wrong with drug users inherently, but usually some people that are involved in some of that drug use are usually also involved in not caring the shit about humanity and figuring out ways of being predators.
Right.
Um, I always assume that the world is very friendly and there's some assholes in it that I need to take in. Yeah, I guess those two observations are pretty key.
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of a life experience that we as adults have to impart to our kids. And as we've been talking about, it's we can't be afraid to impart that life experience. We can't be afraid to have that conversation. We can't be afraid to ruin their innocence, that sort of thing. Because if we don't tell them, How else are they going to find out?
Yeah,
You know.
I get this whole, but they're gonna have nightmares. Like I had this talk at the school, and I'll post a picture when you post the conversation. I'll post this picture. It's me in full uniform talking to these kindergartners, right? And somebody wrote this comment like, "Ed showing like this is how you kill a man." It's like I wasn't talking about I wasn't talking about any of that to these kids. I was actually being punished that in that picture. Like I was sent to talk to schools as a punishment for some stupid shit that I did. That if you want to know what that is, just buy me a root beer somewhere, and I'll share the story.
Gotcha.
I don't want to talk about it right now. But I talked to them about strangers and stranger
Hmm.
danger and being aware, not getting close to cars, not being aware of your surroundings, making a lot of noise if something happens, all of these things. And a few days later, I got word back that one of the parents complained because the kid had nightmares. Like one of the kids had nightmares, and I'm like,
He was listening.
yeah, number one, he was listening, and number two, the nightmares were them processing some of that information. Nightmares are essential.
Hmm.
If you think about
Hmm.
them, like when I was a kid, I remember having this dreadful nightmare of going into the ocean and being dragged and drowned in the ocean. And I would
Sure.
go like I grew up in Baja, so like the ocean was always around for us. Like we'd always go to these fucking amazing beaches and just get wasted with our friends or and I remember having this dream about it. It's like, oh shit, I need to be more careful about just being stupid around the ocean. Because when I was a kid, I would fucking drink and go into the water and just do stupid shit. But after that nightmare, like, just made me kind of reconsider it.
Hmm.
And a few years later, one of my friends was boogie boarding and he got swallowed up by the sea. He was drunk. And it like nightmares are it's your subconscious telling you that, yeah, to figure some shit out, to pay attention, I guess. Your kids will have nightmares.
Hmm.
That is unavoidable, but
Right.
it's like a fever, it breaks. It does the job it needs to do and it breaks. Um, Using that as an excuse not to expose your children to certain things that might make them uncomfortable or make them have nightmares is folly. They'll have nightmares anyway when they watch fucking Lion King and see Mufasa's, get murked. Um, Nightmares are going to be there anyway, so it's probably a good idea to just to expose them.
Right.
Um, it's tantamount to putting your kids and getting them them getting sick and them getting the benefits of having the antibodies from the sickness. I get it. I wish nothing would touch my daughter. I wish she could live in this up armored crystal ball that just kept her safe from everything. Dude, fucking somebody said some bullshit that cancel that shit out. Somebody tries to bring her down and that there's a laser from the sky and just shoots that guy. Like I wish that was the thing. But do I?
Mm.
Do I wish that? Do I wish my kid to be an isolated alien? Is that what I wish for my kid? And if that's what you wish for your kid, you need to do some soul searching. Um, there's I think it was I think it's in the book The Prophet from Hebron, um, that our kids they're not of us. They come through us.
Mm.
Your children are like an arrow that you cast out into the future that you will never see land. And if you don't pull that string, they're going to land really near you.
Mm.
And I think the metaphor of that string being pulled is this,
Right.
uh,
It is.
pushing them, pushing them in such a way where they get that experience and they get all of the fly time they need to just go fast and land further, you know. Um, uh, and ending up living in your and dad's basement. Is
Right.
is probably because there was not a lot of effort put into that bow. And that's I guess in a lot of ways that's how we treat it.
Right. Ed, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So, like, as we wrap up here, is there a lesson that you learned, like maybe from your mom or something, that is something you keep with you all the time that you remember, like is keeping you safe even as an adult today?
Nobody is against you. They're for themselves. Has been one of the most life-altering realizations that I was given by my mother. Uh, it cut out a lot of unnecessary grief, anger, resentment, and emotion around being treated differently or somebody just being an asshat. I realized that you realize that just people are have the ability to be sacred, but they also have the ability to be, you know, demonic.
Hmm.
And a lot of what makes people who they are is just them trying to satisfy their needs. And and that's just the basics of being humans. I have to put on my gas mask first in order to be able to put it on somebody else. I have to meet my needs first in order to meet needs of somebody else. And when somebody just doesn't put your needs before you there, like before theirs, you're like freaking out. Like that's the nature of the world.
Hmm.
Nobody's against you; they're for themselves. Don't take shit personally. You're not the first one that has been through this. That's another aspect of it. Basically, that you're not special in your bullshit that happened to you. I've been through some insane experiences, and it's left me very broken in a lot of ways that I'm pretty good at masking. Um, but that experience made me who I am. Um, Again, nobody's against you. They're just for themselves, and there's nobody to blame. There's nobody to blame in that. So it's easier to kind of go through your life.
I've heard you say that before. I don't know if it was on a podcast or you shared it on Instagram or Patreon or something, but that phrase has actually personally helped me. Like, I get it, I understand it. So, the lesson that your mom imparted to you, you have also imparted to me, and it's helped me. And I will impart that to my son as well. So, that's awesome. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, somebody suffering with bullshit, somebody having a small dick, somebody just being just wanting to be really loud and boisterous. I know some legit killers, and I'm not going to say anything about my capabilities, but I know some. I've been in places with some legit killers, uh, sanctioned by the government and unsanctioned. um, and one thing that all of them have in common, I mean, the ones that I consider legitimate, um, is that they don't think much of themselves. Um, they abandoned self long ago. And I think the samurai talk about ego death or always being dead and just thinking of yourself as dead. Um, I think it is essential to find in your life mentors, people that exemplify aspects of what you would want to become. And some of the people that I've met in my life, from my mentor and one of the people that basically got me on the path, Lieutenant Colonel Isola, to some of the amazing people that I've met through the podcasting and the training, like Eddie Gallagher, Josh Burnett. All these people are selfless. They don't they don't give a shit about themselves, and in that is an amazing power. If I've
Mm,
impressed you in any way, shape, or form through my actions or through my work or through what I experienced, it's not because I have a special tab somewhere. It's not because I went through a special course. It's because that's where a lot of death iconography that I use comes from.
mm,
It's this whole aspect of just knowing that um, everything you're trying to avoid is going to happen anyway. I'm trying to avoid my kid going through some horrible shit. It's going to happen anyway. I'm trying to avoid my house from falling down. It's going to happen anyway. I'm trying to avoid death. Ooh, good luck with that.
Right. Right.
I'm trying to avoid, you name it, whatever you're trying to avoid in some way, shape, or form. In the end, it's going to happen anyway. That doesn't mean you have to be a nihilist and fucking just say, well, fuck everything. No, it means that everything we experience is precious. That every dude you meet around here is like, holy shit, this isn't a one in a lifetime opportunity just to be here. That's how I treat life. And if you see what I've done, where I've gotten to, some of the things that I've been able to achieve, it's because every day for me is a gift. I've been so close to death and I've seen death so many times that I just know that any day. Uh, this morning, while I was getting ready to come on here, I I had this small moment with my father, he's in his late 70s. We're celebrating a death anniversary today. My brother, who passed away when I was 13, passed away on this day ooh, a long while ago now. I was 13. I'm 41. I'm 42 now, so it was a while back. I asked him. He still remembers everything about him, like his favorite song, what he was wearing when he left the house, all of these things. And I asked him, like, what's my favorite song? And my dad couldn't answer. Now, you could take that with frustration as a son, like, I didn't favorite song. But it just didn't dawn on me. He lost him. Whoever he was when he left is going to be always him in the memories of people that kind of let go of that. So this bright 19-year-old kid who's going to be forever joyous, happy as, and I understand why he would know all that about him and be distracted by all the weird stuff that I've done and not know my song. And I don't take it personally. I understand it now, and I live my life in such a way where somebody at some point is going to remember what my favorite song was.
Very good, man. Wow. Awesome. Um, I know a lot of people listening already know where to find you and all that sort of stuff, but for anybody who's new, where can they find you online?
We're very shadow man on Instagram because we talk a lot of we talk about a lot of horrible stuff and some interesting stuff as well. So people can find us on Instagram through our online presence, through our podcast we do. We do this podcast called Manifesto Radio Podcast, which is basically me bringing on a bunch of people that I've learned from. Or people that have gone through the same process that I went through. I usually like to describe my experience as a shamanic experience. A shaman will go into the underworld, get ripped apart, and come back with lessons. And that's usually who I have on my podcast. Most of these people are shamans in their own right. So if people want to check us out, Manifesto Radio Podcast on Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel, Manifesto Radio Podcast, where we basically put up all the videos of our conversations. There's currently a beautiful one with Zen Cop, a Zen practicing police officer who talks about grief. Beautiful man, great stuff. We talk about there. Sneak Reaper Industries, which is our product brand. If you want to gear up, check us out. We're a pretty weird company. If people want to learn more about what we do, some of the stuff we train, and some of the life philosophy aspects of this type of stuff that I'm kind of showing people, we have a Patreon account, Ed's Manifesto Patreon. That's going to lead you to all of our online training material from urban movement, weaponology. We're about to showcase a video with a man that I learned from who knows how to rip people apart with his bare hands. He's pretty evasive as far as trying to learn from him, but he's graciously decided to share some of that knowledge on that Patreon. So we're about to post some of that stuff up there as well. And we have a Discord where we're going over aspects of human intelligence, OSINT, open intelligence, just interesting aspects of just how to basically upgrade your ability to be aware, not just of your environment, but also of the news. You'll see a picture and we'll show you how to see if that picture is taken somewhere else, fake, and ways of verifying what you're seeing on the news, which today is pretty important. It separates us from the rest.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you're right.
you can find us there.
Very cool, sir. And I appreciate this conversation. Thank you for everything that you have done and that you're going to do in the future, buddy. I really do appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on. I relish opportunities to speak to people that are just like minded. So thank you.